to sort of have a time where we could talk a little bit about some sort of form of function of mechanics of worship team, praise team, environment, things like that. So some of you I haven't met before. My name is David. Bruce.
Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you. What's your name again?
Catherine.
Catherine. Very good. This is Adam. Adam, we've been together for 3 sessions. So
Best friends.
best friends.
Fonda.
Fonda, it's good to meet you. And
Thank
this is
you.
my dad, Alan.
Kind of sort of
Okay.
So yeah.
Really?
Over their presence.
Seriously?
It is,
Oh, I
yeah.
thought you were just kidding.
Yep. And this is my uncle, Bruce.
Yeah.
Adam's my cousin. And what's your name?
Landon.
Landon
He's your other cousin.
is my nephew.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Still how it works.
So I feel out of place.
And you're my aunt.
Thank
Or
you. I'll take that.
third cousin from
It's okay.
the whatever, So, a little bit about me, and then I'd love to hear a little about kind of you guys and your context and where you are, and then I'm just gonna ask a couple questions and we'll kind of dialogue a little bit. So, I live in Huntsville, Texas. Anybody know where Huntsville is? Yeah. Just about 2 hours east of here. We're there for good reason. So we're there by force or by law. My wife's name is Emily. Let me see if this is still. I have a picture of her. That's her. This is that was our niece's birthday party. Oh, sorry. I'll sit down for the picture.
So hats were not optional.
Those are actually tutus.
Oh, I see that. Okay.
Yeah. So they're tutus for 3 and 4 year olds and headdresses for adults. So my wife is we're kind of very stupid and silly. So she has a new business in ugly Christmas sweater making, and this was last year. So let's turn that a little bit. So as you can see, some of the features on these Christmas sweaters is there's a Rudolph book, picture book attached to my chest, and the Christmas turtleneck, and then there's a Santa Claus on the shoulder for gift giving at any point in time where we are in any conversation. And
She really makes these?
yeah, she made those. Yeah. So she's actually, it's pretty funny. She's actually gonna open up like an Etsy store and just do stupid stuff like that, like for this year for Christmas. So she builds stuff. This is another. This is my J.C. Christmas sweater picture, and
Where's
yeah.
this book?
Huh?
Book got shredded.
Oh, it's there. Yeah, it's there. It's just open.
Oh.
Yeah, you
Oh.
can see the pages. So it was fully functional. So
Oh,
just,
so it had been daily
yeah, it doesn't. It's not on the shirt anymore. So our family animal is the owl. We had some ornaments, pine cone ornaments, several Christmases ago, and they were all kinds of animals. And we have themes. So my wife names everything. Our cars have names. My guitars have names. Our couch had a name at some point, but that didn't last very long. So we had these ornaments, and this particular year, the theme of our Christmas tree was Baby Jesus, Indiana Jones, and the Woodland Creatures. And so I have an Indiana Jones ornament, and we have the nativity set on our Christmas tree, and then we had these pine cone owls, and it was like, we need to name the owls. It was like a little, husband and a wife owl. And I was like, well, what are we going to name them? And I said, I've got it. We'll name them the Gentiles. Pretty good. So anyway, that's a keychain that goes, when you push it. It's an owl. These are some of our college kids. We do a lot of college ministry in Huntsville, Sam Houston State University. I love the Houston Astros, as I've said every session. We're moving to Houston, and I cannot wait to go to an Astros game after church. That's her. She's gorgeous. Yeah, that's about it. That's kind of me. I grew up south of Houston. We were from Louisiana. Mom and Dad grew up in Baton Rouge. They went to school down there. Dad's in ministry. He's been in ministry for what?
Since 1971.
1971. So it's a long, long time. The church that he's at, he's been there for 25 years, 26 years this year. So he's a worship pastor. And so I grew up in the church. Grew up under Key and others. My uncle was a youth pastor for many, many, many years. Dad's parents, Mama and Papa, they were part of a missionary plant in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And they did a lot of cool things. Like one of the coolest things, I think that church was one of the first churches to sort of have open doors racially in Baton Rouge. Like it was incredible. It was incredible. So I kind of was just kind of walked into a pretty cool heritage. I can't really claim anything to that, but grew up in Sweeney, Texas, which is kind of just a really, really small town. I've never heard of it. It's there, still exists. Went to Dallas Baptist University, did a music business degree there, and a little bit of graduate work in the worship leadership program. Met Emily, and then there was no more school. So I was kind of like, all right, I'm going to go spend time with her. I'm not going to go to school. And then for the next 10 years, lived in the Dallas area, was on staff in a couple of churches, First Baptist Euless, which is in the DFW area there near the airport. And then was at a church plant in Frisco for about a year and a half called Providence Church. It was an Acts 29 church. And throughout all that time in college was traveling to camps and conferences and student stuff and with a group of guys and band. And then we moved to Huntsville, where Emily was a director at a Christian sports camp on Carolina Creek Christian Camp. And we've been there for the last 4 years. Was an interim worship leader at a church there in Huntsville, BGCT Church, University Heights Baptist Church. Richard Rogers is the pastor. Great man. And then was a worship pastor in the Woodlands, which is just north of Houston, for about 18 months. That church merged into another church, and my position was dissolved at that point, and that happened in November. And now just accepted a position at a church in Houston, and that starts next, like 3 weeks. So that's why we're moving. I'll be a worship leader there, and starting sort of a contemporary gathering there. For the last 15 years, I've been involved in local church ministry on staff, and then also doing my itinerant ministry and conferencing and revivals and student stuff. This summer, this is my 12th week of sort of itinerant ministry, youth camps, and a couple conferences. And so this week I've been here in the mornings, and then I've been in Houston at night leading worship for a student conference. I've been driving back and forth. Tonight we'll lead worship at 7, finish at 9, pack up, and drive to Fort Worth, and have another worship conference in Fort Worth tomorrow. Call time is 8:30. So doing a songwriting panel, leading worship in the morning, and then doing another teaching tomorrow afternoon. And then I'll sleep all day Sunday. And then I'm helping out with a songwriting camp there in the DFW area for high school kids. So then I'll be a cabin leader. So y'all can really pray for me. I'll be with about 8 or 10 high school dudes, and I'm supposed to have activities. I'm like, you're in high school. You can dream it up. Okay.
That's dangerous.
Oh, they will.
That's just dangerous.
I will
Don't
observe.
give them free rein.
I'll observe and disprove. Let's go swimming. How about that?
Yeah.
That's going to be our activity for today. But no,
Free squad.
right? Yeah. But it'll be great. So, it's been amazing. I mean, I love the church. I love ministry. You guys call me to ministry, full-time vocational ministry. It's looked different in different seasons of life, but I love it. And from being a lowly intern to being a worship pastor to being I was an associate worship associate at a pretty large church. So our choir was 150 folks, rhythm section from North Texas, and it was just a big church. By God's grace, that I was able to serve there for a little bit and enjoy that. To church plants, been in church plants that are 3 years old. Led worship for a buddy of mine this summer, and his church plant was a month old. So they're in a gym, they're in a tennis gym, and you sit up and it smells like, boys. School boys, and which was great. You're like, here I am to worship. Here I am to bow down. Man, that odor is. Heaven is not going to smell like this. Just event stuff, and I love every scenario. I love from spending time with Anglican folks and Presbyterian folks and Catholic folks and Baptist folks. My heritage is Southern Baptist, and Methodist folks, and I love it. So I love being in the context of a worship gathering with the church, not just the church who happens to be Southern Baptist, which is my heritage, but I love the church and spending time with them. So that's a little bit of just flyby. I'm 35, and it has flown by. We've been married 7 years. We don't have any kids yet. We hope to have kids this year. We're in an adoption process, and we hope to be doing some foster to adopt this fall. That'll be fun. We have a cat. His name's Huey Lewis. Huey Lewis in the News is one of my favorite bands. So that's one. And Back to the Future is one of my favorite movie. And the trilogy counts as one. That's what I like to say.
Yes. You're right.
Always.
Gotta watch them all at once.
That's right.
Every time.
So, yeah, so,
Purists.
so what I'd like to do is, if it's possible, I'd love to just kind of have kind of an exchange, dialogue type of thing. I'd love to hear about what your contexts are, what your team environment is, and I'd love for us to talk a little bit about, like, if you came to this conference with some things in mind, man, this is where I am, this is where we are as a church, this is where we'd like to be and like to go. What are some things that you're needing to address and desiring to address in your ministry, and how could we talk about that and address some of those things, possibly bring some encouragement, some wisdom, not necessarily. I would love to help and speak into that. But in many ways, all of us come from different places and different environments. So I really do think we can help one another out. I do have a couple things that I want to share about the worship leader as a shepherd and as a guide in the corporate experience. And I'll love to share some of those things. But I'd love to hear from you guys where you are and what are some, even just questions that you would have. One of the guys, Joel, was asking yesterday. He said, "How do I, if there's tragedy, if there's hardship on my team, where do we go to? Where do we go from there? Like, how do I lead my team? How do I address these issues and lead from that place of tragedy or dryness or darkness in our church?" And so I can address that, as I've been through a couple of things, and our dad's been through a lot too. You can speak of that, and you have as well. But how do you lead in the context of hardship and disaster and tragedy? So that'll be one thing that we can talk about and discuss. So, but what's your context, and what are some things that you guys are working through addressing and you're like, man, how could this work? Or how, would anyone have anything that, or I could just go down the line, whatever. But what's something that?
When I get back, I'm auditioning people to start a new band.
Okay.
Structure
Yeah.
for a new service. So, we just ask hypothetically, if you could start over wherever you are, how would you structure your teams? And how many leaders and how many rotations would you do? And what are the kind of people you look for when you haven't met somebody? What are the qualities and characteristics that they bear out through many seasons as being good team members?
Okay. Wow. Okay, that's like 4 questions. Okay.
Yeah.
It's good.
Someone else needs to jump in, sorry.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so so audition process,
Yeah.
and then who do you look for?
Yeah.
Okay. As you can tell, I don't normally use a chalkboard because that's not possibly legible. So audition process, who do you look for?
Oh, look, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
So
The last session was burning.
Actually,
This one is just cooking.
this is a more accurate description.
Probably.
When you're auditioning people, who do you cook?
And who do you not cook?
And who do you not cook?
Are they on the hot plate at the audition?
Yes, everyone is. And then there was another part of that. How do you structure?
Structure.
Okay,
There you
yeah.
go.
Structuring
Rotations,
teams.
rotations and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, you can't read that, but I can to keep me focused. So that's good. So audition process. Whew. Okay, so I think there are a couple of different ways that you can do that. One of the ways, however you structure your audition process, my question would be, before that ever happens, do you have a covenant? Do you have a worship team covenant? Because I would encourage you to consider a couple things. The core qualities of your worship team from a theological perspective, from a philosophical perspective, who you are, who you're going to be. And then also having boundaries to speaking into who do you qualify, how do you qualify them, who not gets in, but what is the makeup of your team? Well, you have to think about that and dream that up before you even get to the audition process. So I would encourage you, at several churches that I've been at, when I was at First Baptist Euless, I mean, our audition process was actually pretty long. I mean, it took several Saturdays to work through folks who expressed an interest in being a part of the worship team. Now, for the choir, we didn't have an audition process. If you wanted to sing and you wanted to be a part of the family, come on. I mean, Wednesday nights was like church. And in that scenario, it was definitely different. I mean, there were 120 to 150 people that would come on Wednesday nights. We had a short worship time, a devotion. We had ministry time where we prayed together and ministered to one another, as well as working on material.
So when you say choir, they were only on a Wednesday night, not part of the background on Sunday morning.
No, they were.
They were
Choir
in the
was
loft
every
on
week.
Sunday morning
They were
too?
in the loft every week.
Okay, plus we've had some selected folks
Yes.
down front. Okay.
So we had choir, and that was Wednesday nights. Then we had vocal team, and that was on vocal team there was probably 35 to 40 people, and we rotated them. You know, not everybody on that praise team were like they were good singers, but it wasn't like I don't know, just craziness. And so what we did was, at that point in time, you know, you had loft, then you had vocal team here, and there were like 10 folks. You had rhythm section here. I mean, okay, granted, some of this stuff, all of our environments are different. So I'm not saying apply this to your situation, because this is a 3,500 seat auditorium. So it's like my context is not that all the time. So all of them are different. But to give you a context, then we would have, you know, I would be out here with maybe 4, you know, other people, that type of deal. So we sort of had different levels of leadership. So you had choir. This was the family. Whoever wanted to could come, and that was the first sort of stage of leadership. And then we had a praise team. That was an audition spot. Then we had more worship leaders, who were platform leaders, and that was an audition spot as well. I was on staff. The worship pastor at this time was Robert Elkins, and he led from piano. So he would be back here, or sometimes the piano would be back up here, and we would be around there. So our process in this really big, not normal environment is we had a covenant, we had guidelines where we talked about expectations from the very beginning. We talked about dress code, we talked about commitment, we talked about the kind of quality from a character perspective that we would be expecting. We talked about time commitment. We had a praise team retreat twice a year. We had a choir retreat every fall, and everybody was required to be there. Like you couldn't be on praise team if you weren't there. These guys rotated. They were probably, it may not have been 40 people. It may have been 25 people, and probably twice a month they would rotate. And so when I was the worship associate, I coordinated this part of the folks. Choir was Robert, rhythm section was Robert, and I did a lot of the platform leadership in that regard. So the difference between this group and this group was significant, not necessarily in level of skill or vocal ability. We had all levels of singers on praise team and two in choir. This was a more select group vocally, obviously, because you're out front. But what I was looking for in this group is who are shepherds and guides and leaders on the platform. If you're in front of people and people are looking to you as their guide, there are some things that I'm looking for. I'm looking for a person who is comfortable in their skin. Looking for a person who is, I view you like I view myself. So, a person who is, can be a great singer, but is actually fairly stationary and just within their own self. That person is probably going to be on the praise team, because I need relational people on out front. Because these folks, especially in a big room, if you have a larger room, these are the primary congregational engagers in your room. And these folks set the tone in the room.
And what do you call those? You have a praise team up there, but what do you call those?
These,
What's the title?
I tell you what, I think this was called our praise team, and then like vocal team. But as a matter of fact, the church that I'm going to, I'm building from scratch. They had a contemporary service almost 2 years ago, and so we're rebuilding it from the ground up.
When you say your rhythm section, are you talking about your whole band or just literally your whole?
Rhythm section is...
Like, do those people up front have guitars? Do they need to have guitars?
In this setting,
just singing, or?
Again, in this setting, it wasn't. So, in our rhythm section, we had drums, guitar, bass,
I was just
piano.
curious to be clear about who was doing what.
Typically, rhythm section is guitars
Okay.
and drums. Yeah.
I have my praise whole thing is like 5 people, so.
Right. Yeah. So again, I don't even really this is not normal. This is a big church. So we had praise team, and then now that I'm going to my setting, these folks I'm considering these worship leaders shepherds. So these folks that are out here would be able to run the program on their own. If they can't run the program on their own, I'm not necessarily going to have them out front. Now, it could be a mix. The reason why that is because we're teaching our people how to respond to God. And this is just a very select group for me. So, every other environment that I've been in, stage, drums, guitar, bass, keys, in a contemporary model, this is usually the model. Me, worship leader, I may have another singer, may have a rhythm guitar, that type of thing. This is fairly typical. Other churches may have the same scenario, keyboards, whatever, or drums are off here, whatever. And you may have singer, with multiple leaders and a primary worship leader. Other scenarios, church plant, if you're a church plant or a smaller church, I mean, it can be guitar, vocal, percussion. You've got 3 folks. So the environment's changed, the makeup of your team is going to change based on what your church is, what your resources are. And again, this is First Baptist Euless. I mean, that was 7,000 members. So I don't want to be the guy that's, you go to a conference and a pastor that's got 10,000 members and saying, hey, this is how you do it because we've got 10,000 people in our church. And it's like, no, that's not how you do it. It's just what happened to you. So there are many different scenarios. All of them are important and valid. So from an audition process, I think, again, understanding what kind of environment and what kind of material that you're intending to present before your people is so important. So, for example, just on a pop worship contemporary model, if you're doing Paul Baloche stuff, Tomlin and Passion stuff, which is pretty normative, and even Tomlin Passion stuff has changed in the last 3 years, and I'll talk about it in a second. One reason why I love Paul Baloche is because his songwriting is extremely accessible, for the most part. With Paul Baloche songs, you can play them, you can present them in pretty much any instrumental environment, whether it's acoustic piano and a percussion instrument, or you've got 3 rhythm guitars, keyboard, everything, praise team, whatever. You can do Paul Baloche stuff. Tomlin used to be that way, and now they've moved more towards the Hillsong, and I'm not saying it's bad, I'm just saying it's different. The Hillsong model. When you listen to a Hillsong record, there's probably 60 to 70 tracks on this record. It's impossible for normal churches to duplicate this. And so, just this is off to the side, Whatever you're hearing on records, you don't try to reproduce what you're hearing. Don't feel that pressure. Listen for great songs. That's what you want. A great song will, with the Holy Spirit, but a great song will carry your people to a really cool place. Now, the reason why I'm talking about Tomlin and Passion is has been moving in this direction of having more and more tracks, which is great. Artistically, it's really, really, really cool. They're doing a lot of cool stuff, but it's making, at times, more difficult for the majority of churches to execute. And even some of the songwriting is built for conference
Yep.
worship. Okay? So, an interesting example of this, there's a song by Paul Baloche that I love. It's called Glorious. Glorious. Da, 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 da. I love that song. It never worked corporately. I could never figure it out. And I think it's because the chorus melody takes a long time to develop. So you have glorious. He stands above the rulers of the earth. And right now, congregation has difficulty with that. You got to fill in the space. But I love this song. I love this song. He has tons of songs. Pastor's got some great songs. There's a song called Almighty on the brand new record that is very hymn-like, and it actually is very late 80s, early 90s balladish. I love it. It is incredible. It is a great bridge song, I think, for generations. The syncopation and the melody is great. Almighty, da 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 dee, da 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 dee, da dee, da dee. You're the King of Kings. It's great melody. So that's great stuff. So, whatever your environment is, and in coming back to the audition process and the way you structure your teams, you know the heart language of your church. What is your voice? If you know the voice of your body, you build your teams and your infrastructure and your audition process based on the heart language of your church. So in Huntsville, Texas, where we've been, I can do a ton of Hillsong stuff. I can do some Bethel stuff. Bethel Church, they've got a lot of great songs. One of which is Furious, a song called Furious. It's really intense, really aggressive. We do this song a lot with students. We're doing it this week. It is an incredible, like, full band, rocking out, just awesome song. In Huntsville, Texas, it doesn't really work. Because Huntsville, Texas is not rock and roll, aggressive, intense, for the most part. It's laid back, very rural. So, in my mind, Paul Baloche works incredibly in Huntsville, Texas. There's some new music coming out by Centricity Worship, and it has a really cool, not folk, but it's just brush snare, and it just laid back. It's got a little bit of a country feel to it, but there's now a movement coming out of Nashville, and some songwriters that I've been able to meet and write with in the last year. There are some really great bridge music that's going to be introduced in the next couple of years, and it's really, really good. So look to Jenny Riddle, who wrote Revelation song. I would follow a lot of what she's doing right now and the writers that she is coming around. A guy named Travis Ryan is incredible, and a guy named Michael Farron, who's in Pocket Full of Rocks. He wrote Let It Rain, Open the Floodgates of Heaven. A lot of these songwriters they've been in the industry, they're in their 40s, and they are bringing, it's just, a lot of their experience in the last 15 years is coming together, and they're writing. They've always been incredible writers. But what they're doing right now, I think, is going to be a great center sort of piece for churches moving forward. Because you've got Hillsong Passion on the more aggressive, anthemic side. And then you've got, say Paul Baloche or Matt Maher, some of these guys who are going to be more centered, more accessible to a lot of churches. So know your voice, know your heart language. Then from that point, that's where you know the kind of songs that you're choosing. So if your people aren't Hillsong folks, don't try to reproduce the sound if it's not going to be their heart language. Now, if it's a great song, great songs translate into every genre of music. So that's why I encourage you to look for great songs. Because great songs will last. And great songs will translate. They'll sing a cappella, they'll sing acoustic, they'll sing with piano and vocal, they'll translate in a choral context. So find great songs. Then in the audition process, you want to put a covenant together that lays this out. This is who we are from a moral standpoint. These are my convictions. This is who we are as a family. We're going to spend this time together. This is your time commitment. You can put the core values of your church, of your worship ministry, your philosophy, your team philosophy, all of that stuff. Put that together so that your people know what they're getting into. It's difficult to audition people, give them an opportunity to participate, and then you realize, whoa, okay, this is a major issue from a character standpoint. Or, I didn't know that this person was really going to push back against me because of he or she want to wear this on the platform, and they're pushing back against. So, but if they don't know what your expectations are, that's sort of unfair for them, because they don't know what they're looking into. So, for me, that's a big part of the audition process, is communicating up front what your desires are and your expectation is. I think there are two major ways to do an audition process. The first is like official. So, you have sign-up sheets, you have people can express interest, and you establish a weekend or a Wednesday night or whatever it is that you can do, and you put in slots where people sign up, they come in. I would have them fill out a testimony sheet, and like we did a sheet at Euless where they shared their testimony, their church experience, their singing or instrument experience. I don't recommend if someone says, man, I used to sing at my old church. It's not a record. Like, you need some sort of resume, quote unquote. And I'm not saying everybody needs to have all of these things on their resume to sing and put to play with you. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you need to know what their background is. I would never sit down with someone in your office or behind a piano, or not on piano, but take someone's word for what their experience is and then put them on the rotation. Ever. I would never do that. That's where a lot of issues come. You need to vet them in some way. Because if you don't ask them hard questions on the front end, you're going to have to deal with hard issues on the back end.
Along with that, a new director coming in and inheriting a praise team
Yes.
of singers, that's been a situation where some have been let in, well, most have been let in without any kind of audition. And you got non-singers or singers that didn't sing well at all, but have the greatest attitude of anybody on the team. You know, how do you deal with that? Or have you ever had to?
Oh yeah, sure, absolutely. Yeah, coming in, band members that are existing. I think with great patience, obviously,
Would you re-audition everybody,
grace.
or?
You can certainly do that. You can certainly do
Cause
that.
hard feelings right off the bat.
So what we did in, I think you're going to have hard feelings regardless of what happens, because a new paradigm is a new paradigm, a new system is a new system, new leadership is new leadership. So no matter what happens, change is inevitable. So when I went to Providence, there were people who did express an interest, and this is in Frisco, and we had a rhythm section. So it was not a rhythm section. It was more like this, like 4 instruments and 2 or 3 singers. So I came in, they had players that they had used and a couple of singers that they had used. So I didn't know anybody. So I did a hearing. I called it a hearing. I didn't call it an audition. And we heard everybody, regardless of who you were and how, you know. And part of the hearing was listening to them to play. And there are various ways in which you can do that. You can have a track in your worship center or whatever, play a track and have them play along. If it's a drummer, play along with a drummer. I would have, if you're auditioning drummers, I would have them play with a click track, the meter, play without supporting instruments by themselves to see how they carry tempo on their own, and then also have them play with the track or with other players. So I would hear all of my players and all of my singers. I would have my singers sing a cappella as well as with another instrument. So I'd play with them or have someone else play with them, and they would sing. I would have them sing in different keys, different tempos. I had 2 or 3 songs available to them that they could choose from. So I chose the songs that they would sing for me. Because a person can come in and sing whatever song fits them best. Well, on a weekly basis, you have a repertoire of 50 to 100 songs on an annual basis. So they're not choosing the songs that they're singing weekly. You are. So choose songs that are difficult. A Revelation song is difficult. It's a difficult song. There are songs that arranges now are extremely difficult. So they're going to pick songs that are in their range and in their key. So you need to pick stuff that's going to be challenging for them because it will expose and bring reality to the forefront. I had one person, so that's what we did. I had an interview with each person. Tell me your story, all that kind of stuff. There were a couple of times where a person, they just weren't ready, and that's what I told them. I said, "Men, I'm sorry." It was a father and a daughter. She was in high school, and he was auditioning for keys and for vocal, and for neither one he wasn't ready. And so he would play and sing by himself and play by himself. I would play with him. And there were a couple times where he had to start over. And I stopped him in the middle of it. I said, "Man, dude, I really appreciate you coming, but if I'm honest with you, I'm going to need somebody that can't start and stop. This is not a start over type of thing." This process is like one of the hardest parts of what we do, because you have to be honest with people. And the worst possible thing that I can do for an artist, a musician, or a person who thinks they're an artist or a musician, is to allow them to continue to think that they're further along on the road than they actually are.
Can I
Yes, Dad.
insert an experience? Our youth basically have their own separate praise team and in group that works on Wednesday night, and I don't control that. Well, when we had a leadership change, they were having issues, and so new leadership came in and they said, came to me and I said, "Why you need to re-audition and just have everybody try out and just and fix the problems." And so they said, "Okay," we set that up, and so they asked me to be one of the people to help audition, and so we listened to everybody, and when we finished, I basically said there was a young lady who had pretty much run the group, and she was just not capable. She had pitch problems, key problems, and so basically, I suggested, you need to move her out, let her have a leadership role and help him do stuff, but she needs to be off the vocal team, because it's not going to be able to move on. Well, they didn't take my advice, and today they do not have a praise band and a praise team because they couldn't deal with the issues that were before them.
Right.
And it died because the quality was so bad, they just had to do away with it.
And this
It hurts.
is a huge.
It hurts. It hurts.
It's a huge issue, and again, grace is a theological tenet in our faith. But we just have to be honest. We can't mislead people. One of the most amazing things I have ever heard in my life, I went to an artist development conference last year called Immerse, and Jenny Riddle was one of the coordinators of this conference. And by God's grace, I've been able to meet her. She's been a mentoring person in my life. The songwriting camp I'm going to next week is hers. So she's an amazing woman and a ridiculous songwriter. She is amazing. So, this conference has a conference side of it. It also has a competition side of it. So people are coming from all over the country to audition and to win.
Recorded contracts.
Recording contracts or whatever, and to have their songs critiqued. And before we ever got started, this is what she says. Some of you will win, and some of you will choose a different direction in life. After this week, some of you won't pursue music anymore because God has spoken to you and you realize that this is not your calling and this is not your gifting. She said, we're going to be honest with you in love. We're going to tell you where you are from a professional standard. You know? And this is different because that situation obviously is different because publishers are critiquing songs. If I was going to publish this song, this is what it has to be. And so that is a different scenario than what's happening in the local body. But the spirit of it is the same. Perfect example. This year, that was last year, this year she said the same thing. I was an intern this year. I was a part of the competition last year. And so I was in the vocal room. There were about 12 young men who auditioned for the vocal competition, and about 35 young women who auditioned for the vocal side. None of the men made it through the first round. There were 3 rounds, and they were not ready. So they shut the male competition down. Period. And they said, men, we love you, but you're not ready. And this is why. They thanked Jimmy. They came up to them and said, thank you so much. We really appreciate that you shared that with us. Why? Because it was done in love. It was done in love. And also, too, you will know the heart of a person if they actually desire to lead in worship, to be a great singer. They will pursue the ends to grow in the craft. If they do not, it's on them. So as a songwriter, I'm doing everything I can to grow as a songwriter and as a vocalist. I have a vocal coach. I studied voice in college. I've been singing since I was 7 years old. I have a vocal coach. It costs $125 an hour. I have to do it. I have to do it to be the best vocalist that I want to be. Tony Bennett is singing and he's 83. He's my favorite vocalist. So we have to be honest with our people or we're going to mislead them, and we're going to facilitate distracted worship services for our people. Because the primary goal, the primary role of me as a worship leader and our worship team is to guide people into the Holy of Holies. Period. And so if our people aren't ready musically to do that, or they're not ready spiritually to do that, you, as a prepared spiritually and musically worship leader, are going to be more capable and effectual in leading your people to the throne of God. I personally, it's just my opinion. Euless, we had 100 and something people on stage. Man, there's just a great spirit on that team. It was amazing. But I would say this, I would rather have 2 people in a room that seats 3,500 than 150, 175 that aren't ready musically and spiritually. It will kill the journey. And so for us, audition process, who do you look for? You look for people who are ready. And honestly, that's, you guys can assess that and determine, where is your church? Where do you want to be? And what is the heart language of your church? And things like that. So, as far as the structure goes, I shared a little bit about this yesterday about caring for your team. I would put your teams on rotation, even if you have a small number of vocalists. Everyone on your team needs to be worshiping in the congregation at some point. My opinion is that moms and dads and granddads and aunts and uncles don't need to be separated from their families 52 weeks out of the year. I think that's unhealthy. So even if it means you have smaller teams, one Sunday a month, so that people can rest and worship together, it's important, especially for your experienced leaders who are gifted, really, and being platform leaders. It's important for them to not be on the platform every week. And the congregation needs to see them lifting hands on this side of the platform and singing with all of their gusto. That's a teaching point. That's a shepherding point. It helps platform leaders establish humility and a body perspective and body paradigm. So, yeah, structure your teams in which everybody has space. If you have 100 people on stage or 5 people on stage, as a worship leader, part of what I'm doing at this new church, like I have Sundays scheduled in where I'm not leading. I'm going to be out there. I'm going to be out there because it's important. I need to hold hands with my wife and sing together. That's healthy. I know I have been in smaller environments where that's really, really difficult. Dad's in an environment where that's really, really difficult. Normal sized churches, it's just difficult because you're the only person many times. But I would encourage you, do whatever you can to effort to take those Sundays. Okay, that's a lot of time on this stuff. Anything else? Yeah, the questions. Again, size does not matter. Environment does not matter. Communicate up front. Be honest. Oh my word, be honest. Like you said, it is hard, but I've seen it done. And people are appreciative. Oh my word. They're so appreciative. And, oh my word, I forget the psalm that I was looking at the other day. I don't have time to look it up. But it said, the rebuke of a righteous person is good for me. Not that you're rebuking people, but you are being honest with them. You're telling them, especially for students, you need to be honest with students. You need to let them know you're not ready. But this is what you can do. Here's a vocal coach in town. Here's a guitar teacher in town. I'll be happy to spend some time with you. Give them options that they can initiate on their own and they can work. Because the reality is, this is an artistic art form. I mean, music is a beautiful expression of the grace of God. And this is a long-term deal. I want to be singing, Lord willing, when I'm 75. Well, not just struggling to get the notes out, but I want to be hitting the back wall when I'm 75. And that takes work. It takes work. And students need to hear that. And so grace, love, but be honest. Be honest. Anything else? Of course, we're almost up.
You didn't say anything about the transition.
The transitions. Okay.
It's 5 seconds.
Just a couple things on transitions. So, when I'm putting a work, and a lot of this has to do with programming. So, one of my passion is liturgical theory. So, I love the design of the worship experience. Every point represents a moment for me. My goal and my task is not making sure that we get this many songs in on a weekly basis. Content is not, don't hear me wrong. Content is not my primary goal. Theological truth, yes, but content is not my goal. My goal is moments. I would rather sing 3 songs. And we talked about this yesterday as far as the makeup of contemporary liturgy right now, which we could talk about that some other time, and I'd love to have that conversation with you because it's about a 2-hour conversation. But my goal is the moment where the people of God connect. Our goal is to meet with Him, to enter into the Holy of Holies. That's to the sanctuary of God. Whatever it takes, whatever it takes to meet the Lord in that moment. That's where I program from. So for me, I don't. The less start and stopping we can do in a program is goal for me. So I usually have when I'm putting songs together, I put them together in clumps. I put moments together based on sections and sets. And this can be divided out even in a subset. So I'll usually clump 2 to 3 songs together in the same key. I don't change keys a ton from song to song. I also put songs together, and contemporary songs are just tremendous at this, where you can come in and out of choruses, verses, bridges, tags, and all that kind of stuff, and really give the people a sense that what's happening in the room is improvisational. So I tend to think that worship music, worship ministry is a lot more like jazz than it is sort of any other genre, especially in contemporary music, because I'll put How Great Is Our God, At the Cross, and The Stand together. I'll sing How Great Is Our Guard, How Great Is Our Guard, from start to finish. I'll do At the Cross from start to finish. Or I may introduce the chorus of At the Cross. So, how great is our God, sing with me, and all I did, how great is our God. Then I'll just go right into the chorus of At the Cross. At the cross, where I first saw the light. Out of tempo. And the burden of my heart rolled away, and is there by faith. Then go into the song, establish the chorus. So I transition with a familiar thought. And then I go into the meat of the song. Then I go back to the original thought. And then I tag a familiar thought. And I'll stand with arms high and build that up a little bit, whatever. I can go back into the content of the song, the verses, the chorus, the bridge, or whatever. And then I will use previous elements of songs already mentioned and come back on the back side. So I've used I'll stand with arms, I'm going to do it really fast again. I'll stand with arms out, and how great is our God. Sing with me, name above all names, and at the cross. And I think of song sets as gumbo. So I've got this, and I've got this, and I've got this, but any of that can happen at any point in time.
So you don't speak and say anything in between all that, you just musically the transition is all musical.
A lot of times. Within these subsets, I don't usually. Now I do a ton of vocal cues musically. So, especially in this sense. Now, this is good.
You the lyrics guy on Xanax?
Yeah.
Just hypothetically, right?
So Adam and I talked about his environment, which is a broadcast environment.
Ours is too. We're live streaming and we're doing radio.
So this can be insanity.
Yeah.
This can be insanity. Now I'm not saying that a lot of this is my style. So I'm not projecting my style of leadership onto you guys by any means.
Well, you have to have a good group that's gonna follow you and know you well enough to
Know the music well.
Yeah.
and
But
know the music
also,
well enough.
But
Yeah.
also, 2 major points, visualization and how you present material. So from an itinerant perspective, I approach music like this. Now, I play with a group of guys who are amazing, and we play a lot together. So that's one
So you
thing.
get away with it.
You can get away with it. But also, I did this in every church that I've been at. We do this. And so in rehearsal times, when I'm teaching songs, I use charts, but I don't teach my band members and my singers to learn songs from praise charts. 5 pages, and you learn by bars, measures. I don't do that. The way we learn it, and the way I teach my teams to learn it, is every song has sections, and I learn songs based on key area, according system, or the Nashville number system. It's a simplified way of thinking about music theory and how songs are put together. And we learn, if I have a song, How Great Is Our God, and I don't learn the song linearly, I think you can learn songs 2 different ways. You can learn songs linearly. I start here and I finish here. Then I begin at bar 1 and I finish at bar 86. That's one way to learn a song. The other way to learn a song is in sections. Verse, pre-chorus, chorus, bridge. So in this song, I have 4 major sections. I also have an intro, and usually in contemporary music, the intro is the outro. You also have what's called a turn, which is the turnaround music, getting from one place to the next. So usually after the chorus, you've got 4 bars, or 8 bars, or 2 bars of the intro theme, the guitar lick, piano lick, whatever. So what we do is, we take a song and I cut it up. So if my verse is 8 bars, a pre-chorus is 4 bars, or I've got 16 bars, 32 bars, 8 bars, 16 bars, 16 bars, whatever. I'm learning songs in sections, not linearly, so that at any point in time, once I'm done with the whole tune, I vocally cue the congregation and my team, usually a bar or 2 before we get there. So if we're like, and all will see how great is our God. I've got 2 bars to get to the next place that I'm going. So, is our God 1, 2. All right, name above all names. Let's call this out. 2, 3. Name above all names. That type of thing. So, as a worship leader, I dissect songs, tear them apart, and then put them back together in a moment. Now, for the most part, I don't take How Great Is Our God and go crazy with it. Every time, it is the whole song, and then I come back and do something on the back end. But when your teams get to a place where they're thinking of songs in sections and not linearly, gumbo can happen. And that's why a lot of times I keep things in the same key, so I can go back and forth. It makes it easier. Also, I'm not a huge fan of starting and stopping, because that means that it requires more from me. Also, too, like our people, they don't know what to do in instrumental sections. They just don't. If you're at Bethel Church, or a place that is extremely expressive, and the people, music just goes, and they're just up in the air, and they're clapping, and they're vocalizing, Lord, I love you, and things like that, and they're enjoying the music. They're enjoying the music in the moment. Like, that's why Hillsong, Bethel, a lot of these music production churches, the intros are long, the instrumentals are long. Why? Because it's glorious in their church. But in our churches, it's awkward. It's just awkward. So as much as you can, and this is why, like, if you get a praise chart, man, they do a great job at praise charts. But what they're doing is translating the exact arrangement of records onto a chart. And it is impossible for that arrangement to fit your context. So you take a praise chart and you cut it up. You take the resource that they've given you and you cut it up. And you make it fit. Manipulate the music so that it can fit your stuff. So if you have a song that's got a 16-bar intro and your folks are going to be weirded out by that,
That's true.
do 4 bars and get right into it. Don't worry about it.
When they panic, you tell them calm down. Every school music teacher does this. You don't use the whole thing, just use the part you need.
Yeah.
Totally.
They do this everywhere.
It's everywhere. This is not, it's not a new thing. It's not a new thing. Every song, again, and that's why the point of a great song is king. We're musicians. We can take a great song and cut it up and put it back together and make it what we need it to be. Do not feel like if you hear something on a record, it's got to be that. That's their expression in Australia, or in Atlanta, or in Houston. I have a record coming out in October, and I love the songs, but that's what we did in the studio. That's how I will express it, but I can guarantee you when I get to the church that I'm going to have to adjust my own arrangement of the song for that church. And I wrote it.
I think contemporary music is cool in a way because it's like a oral tradition more, Because like if you go
Very
to
much so.
every church you go to is going to sing a song a different way.
Absolutely.
And it's not like you're reading out of hymn.
There's a lot of beauty. And it's all about
Maybe
genre.
that started that way too, I don't know.
And it's all about genre, it really is. The beauty of choral music is that it is linear. The beauty of instrumental music and things like is that it is linear. And there's beauty to that, and there's purpose in that. I think the beauty in contemporary music is that it can be gumbo. If you want it, gumbo's good though.
Gumbo happens.
Gumbo happens. Now, like I said, I've been practicing this for 15 years. Like, I've led 300 worship services this year alone. So, I mean, I've been doing this and messing with this literally thousands and thousands of times in the last 10 years. I've messed this up a lot. But it's okay. It is okay. Like, for some reason, we think that as worship leaders, we can't mess up. Sometimes mistakes are the best thing to happen in your worship services. Starting over is one of the best things to happen. My fear is that we're producing conference sessions on Sunday morning that is structured by a clock, and I go here, I go here, I go here, I go here. And that's no offense to any of your contexts, because I'm in a similar context too. I'm saying, it's a concern that I have.